Disaster. Today marks the anniversary of one of the greatest disasters ever. I'll tell you exactly what kind of a disaster it was. And severe weather, to be or not to be. And it's Wednesday, which means it's time to take a look at your weekend forecast, but we're not going to do any of that without first testing your weather IQ. So angels and ministers of grace, defend us. A new episode of Cold Rain's Weather World's coming at you right now. Hello again and welcome back to another exciting, fun-filled, action-packed, spectacular episode of Cold Rain's Weather World, where we've got all the weather. If you're returning to the channel, then thank you for coming back and sharing your time with me today. And if you're brand new to the channel, then welcome aboard. You're in for a treat today. We've got some good stuff on the menu. Of course, we're going to get into severe weather and the threat that exists around that. We're going to take a look at your weekend forecast and the longer range, but we've also got disaster to talk about. We're going to get into that and a couple of other interesting tidbits and fun facts to share along the way. We're the fastest growing brand new weather show on the internet, and as always, we leave you smarter than when you came. And one of the ways that we do that is by testing your weather IQ. And if your weather IQ is low, it will not be as low as you watch these daily shows. You'll have a very, very high weather IQ in no time. So we're going to start, as we always do, with our daily weather IQ question. And because it is foggy outside today, I thought it would be appropriate to produce a question about fog. So here it is. Let's go. What type of fog forms most often during clear nights with little wind when the ground cools quickly? Advection fog, radiation fog, upslope fog, or steam fog? And notice foghorn leghorn is not one of the options. But if you know the answer, type it as always in the comment section. If you don't, then just stick around to the end of the show and I will let you know exactly what the correct answer is. I'm going to start the weather segment of our show with our satellite imagery, which we usually do. This satellite image is overlaid with lightning so you can see where the convection is under the actual clouds. And we've got clouds and rain extending from Kansas down into Texas, another area of showers working through Iowa, now moving into Wisconsin and Illinois. Just general clouds out here in the upper Rocky Mountain West and the Intermountain West out here. And then, of course, there's a frontal zone that's draped over the southeast, and that will be the focus for showers and storms as we get through the afternoon. Be partly to mostly cloudy in the southeast, then partly cloudy skies up into New England with mostly cloudy in northern Maine. Looking at the radar image, it's already kind of in the motion here. I'm going to stop it just so we can kind of see where things are right at this moment. Here's that cluster of showers and storms from Dallas down to Houston. Had a couple of mesoscale convective complexes form overnight and merge into a line, and that has persisted through the morning. That will weaken as the morning wears on. We've got another batch of showers moving into Kansas, or moving through Kansas, and then out of Iowa into Wisconsin and Illinois is another batch of heavier rainfall. Mostly we've got cloudy skies across the southeast with a few patches of showers here. Just putting that into motion, you can kind of see the general motion of these showers off to the east. These ones in the southeast are kind of meandering around a little bit. So there's your radar image. Looking at the hazards map today, man, I just want to show this because it is so clean. Still got that flash flood warning out here in Dallas and Fort Worth for some several inches of rain that has fallen out there with that thunderstorm cluster that should be winding down, river flooding, and that is it, folks. Very, very clean map today. So not going to belabor that. The surface map, we've got a frontal zone stalled from Minnesota all the way back into Utah. Threat for severe weather exists again today over Texas from down here in southwestern Texas up through the panhandle of Oklahoma into Kansas. And then frontal zone, again, will be the focus for some showers and storms out here from Minnesota to Nebraska. Frontal zone draped across the southeast will be, again, focus for showers and thunderstorms around there as well. Looking at yesterday, we had quite a few storm reports yesterday, including some in the area of my neck of the woods. We had some in my old stomping grounds. I had a friend send me a picture of some hail. About the size of pennies, so plenty of reports of penny and dime size and even quarter size hail out here in North Carolina. Even had a report of some ping pong ball size hail. And look down here in Texas. You see this area here? Look at this. These squares are wind gusts there was a wind gust in Midland of 111 miles per hour, folks. That is some high wind, and it wasn't just instrument failure or bad instrumentation. There was actually damage that was surveyed that was consistent with that. 111. It was a dry microburst. A dying thunderstorm decayed on itself, collapsed, boom, big wind came out, and that's what happened. Now, our severe threat today is centered from southwestern Texas all the way up through much of Kansas today. There is a dry line that has set up, and there's a frontal zone that's focus up here from, I showed you that before, from Minnesota through Iowa. But we've got some instability, a little bit of wind shear aloft, but enough instability is going to form over these areas and interact with these features at the surface to promote lift. And we're going to see the threat of hail and wind being the primary hazards today. Tornado very low, wind 15%, and hail. We had large hail reports over 2 inches in diameter yesterday. Expect to see more of that today. And then just some general shower and thunderstorm activity across much of the rest of the central portion and the southern portion of the country, including a marginal risk here in the coastal sections of the Carolinas, eastern South Carolina, into southeastern Georgia, where we could see a few sporadic hail and wind reports out here too. And again, a marginal risk up through Wisconsin for similar conditions there. So that's what our severe weather threat looks like today. Taking a look at the instability for this afternoon, we're going to put this into motion, and this is from the HRRR model, and you can see just instability really exploding here across Texas, getting way up into around 2,000 to 3,000 in some areas of joules of Cape. So instability is more than adequate from Wisconsin all the way down to Texas to produce some thunderstorm activity and some severe weather with vigorous updrafts capable of producing some supercells and some clustering later on. We'll probably see some of these cells organize and then persist overnight as we've had instability will continue to persist. Looking at the lightning display in terms of how that shakes out, this is this morning. As we get into this afternoon, mid-afternoon, we're seeing thunderstorm activity develop over Kansas and Oklahoma into Texas. Across the southeast, that frontal zone's lighting up, so you can see all the activity as we get toward late afternoon into the evening hours, and then things will kind of wane as nocturnal cooling takes over, okay? So you see that, but it doesn't completely die out. We'll have a few clusters left over as we work through the overnight hours, and we could see that low-level jet a lot of times at night. Conditions favor the development and maintenance of a low-level jet, which then can act to enhance and organize some of the severe weather into clusters. And so you may see some of that again through the overnight hours up here in Nebraska, Kansas. You could see that activity kind of maintain and then die out as we get into tomorrow morning. So that is the threat for today. We're going to take a look at the severe weather threat over the next few days and a look at your weekend forecast. But first, we have a special This Day in History. Usually when I do a This Day in History segment, it's about the weather, but today I couldn't really find any noteworthy historical weather events, at least in my mind. But I did find a few prominent and significant historical events to share with you that were not weather related. And the first of those happened way back in 1616, and I already gave you a hint of this if you were paying attention in the opening intro. On April the 23rd, 1616 rather, in Stratford-upon-Avon, England, renowned English playwright and poet William Shakespeare died. Today is the anniversary of his death. Now, if we also go back in time, but not quite as far back, to 2005, you'll find something very important that happened. If you're watching this video today, you're obviously on the YouTube platform, and the very first YouTube file was uploaded back in 2005 on April the 23rd by the co-founder Jawed Karim. I think I'm saying his name right. It could be Jawed Karim, I'm not sure. But it was titled Me at the Zoo, and it marked the inception of what would become one of the most influential video sharing platforms available today. So I didn't know if you know that or not, but that was kind of cool. But the most prominent event happened in 1985, one of the biggest disasters ever from a marketing and PR standpoint for any company ever in history. And many case studies have been done about this. We'll talk about it, but what's better than actually seeing it happen? So let's go back in our time machine to 1985 and take a look.
There's never been a better taste. There's never been a better Coke. Introducing the greatest taste discovery in 100 years. Introducing the new taste of Coca-Cola. A taste that is Coke and everything a Coke means. A taste that's very familiar, yet totally new. A taste so good, so real, it couldn't be anything but a Coke. The great new taste of Coke. Watch for it, try it, and enjoy the best tasting Coke ever.
Some of you were not born in 1985, and you may be scratching your head. Why are you showing me this? Well, I'm showing it because it was a complete disaster. It was one of the biggest corporate and PR debacles in corporate history, and many case studies have been done about it to show exactly how not to destroy your brand. Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola were head-to-head in the cola wars of the early and mid 1980s, and Pepsi was gaining market share, and so Coke came out with a new formula, a sweeter formula, to try to compete with Pepsi. They did all these blind taste tests, which by the way were sip tests. You just sipped it and you compared, and they compared favorably to Pepsi. And so they came out and they said, okay, we're going to push out new Coke, and so they launched new Coke on this day in 1985. Well, there was unimaginably, to the corporate executives, there was massive backlash across the country. There was such an emotional and cultural attachment to Coke that people, in some cases, protested in the streets, and they called in Coke, and the hotlines were just buried with call volume, and such a backlash that 79 days later, Coke decided to completely reverse their decision and bring original Coca-Cola back, and they called it Coca-Cola Classic. New Coke was no longer available as New Coke. They eventually changed it to Coke 2, and I think finally that was pulled off the market in 2002. But that was a disaster of epic proportions, and it is a case study on how to destroy your brand. Eventually, Coke did come out of that and actually in better shape, but for a time, Pepsi really capitalized on that, and that's what happened on April the 23rd, 1985. All right, well, we're going to roll along here with the severe weather outlook for the rest of the week, into the weekend, even into early next week. And we're going to take a look at tomorrow here. So tomorrow we've got a marginal threat from Colorado back into Oklahoma, including Oklahoma City, back into Texas, Abilene, Midland again, and Amarillo, and some of these areas here. And then general thunderstorm activity elsewhere. As we go on out, I would not be surprised, by the way, to see some area of this get upgraded to a slight risk tomorrow as dynamics are a little bit better understood. We also have tomorrow, I set this and I need to go back and reset it. We also have a slight risk of excessive rainfall. Could see a couple of inches of rain in the areas of yellow that you see here from western Missouri into Oklahoma and Kansas predominantly. So watch out for a few training cells with some clusters producing some heavy rain tomorrow. And then as we get on into Friday, Texas, so from Amarillo up to Oklahoma City, again, marginal risk, may end up seeing a slight risk, but we're going to see a little bit more ridging in the atmosphere. So we may end up not having all that much severe weather. But again, the risk is hail, high winds, and not so much tornadoes, so not really a lot going on there. Now, day 4, which is Saturday and then Sunday, predictability is too low for any sort of organized severe weather, so there's nothing on the map here. It would not surprise me to see something pop up. There's a cold front that's going to be moving across the East Coast, so there could be a marginal severe weather threat here, maybe even a slight risk as we get into the Sunday time frame along the East Coast. We'll have to pay attention to that, and potentially out here as well in the same areas that have been getting hit the last couple of days. But the more organized severe weather threat looks to come into play Monday to Tuesday, and then Tuesday to Wednesday in the Central Plains down into the mid-Mississippi River Valley and up into the Great Lakes. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. But another trough is going to form in the west and set up some deep southerly flow. There's going to be wind shear aloft, plenty of humidity and moisture in the lower levels of the atmosphere, producing instability. So we're going to see a greater chance of organized severe weather. This could include tornadoes too, so it will be an all hazards event. We'll pay attention to that over the coming days. But the general flow regime and dew points as we go on through time here, we'll just take a look at our dew points today. But looking here at the dew points, look at this. So this afternoon, we're seeing dew points climb up, and you got a nice big area of moist, you know, atmosphere for instability and general thunderstorm activity along the dry line, along this frontal zone. You can clearly see these marked by the boundary between moist and dry air here. That's where we'll see showers and thunderstorms fire and organize a little bit better, giving you a broader severe threat. That dry line slides west through the evening and back east again Thursday afternoon, west again Thursday evening, and back east again Friday afternoon. And you've got just a nice warm sector. And we've got this system that's going to be traversing the Canadian border. It's going to drag a cold front through and kind of wipe out the moisture here in the southeast for a while. Look at it, look how that happens as we get into Saturday, into Sunday. You get a big surge, especially down here in the Carolinas. You get that cold front sweeping through, and you get a reprieve, at least for a couple of days, from the hot and humid conditions. So we're going to cool off late in the weekend, early next week here along the East Coast. But in the meantime, a trough is going to be generated here in the west, pumping up moisture and setting the stage for a severe weather outbreak come Monday and Tuesday across the plains into the Ohio and Mississippi River valleys, and just generally the flow across the nation zonal pretty much right now. And you've got cool mid-levels, so you're able to generate showers and thunderstorms with lift and cape. But as we go the next couple of days, a little bit more ridging out here over the south. And so that's going to kind of cap the atmosphere, make it a little harder for thunderstorms to develop. We get on into Friday, into Saturday, we can see that system pushing through the northeast, going to drag a cold front through the east, Saturday and Sunday. And then that trough swings into the west. You can see that clearly defined here. That's going to open up a big, broad southwesterly flow, increase winds aloft, bring disturbances in to help create lift, and then organize showers and thunderstorms into a severe weather event, potentially in the plains and the Midwest and heartland areas as we go on into early next week. And the flow kind of gets messy after that. You've got a ridge developing in the west, little trough in the east. As long as you got troughing here, you've got general showers and thunderstorms potentially in the picture as we get on out toward later in next week, toward next weekend. So that's your flow pattern. Kind of putting that all together at the surface, you can kind of see how everything translates here. And showers and thunderstorms this afternoon, just general showers and thunderstorms over the next few days. This system that we talked about moving across the Canadian border, dragging that cold front through, that'll sweep everything kind of out Sunday into Monday in the east. And then in the west, we get this trough. We get another system that starts to organize out here and bring a severe weather threat. So you get severe storms firing out here. You get a big line of storms firing as we get into Tuesday evening. And so Monday and Tuesday could be quite active, and then we just have general activity in the east as we go on through time. So that's what we're looking at in terms of our sensible weather. Temperatures, we're going to see warm conditions for much of the southern part of the country. Only cool spots are up here around Montana and North Dakota, and then out in the southern areas of California. This is days 1 through 5, days 2 through 6, looking at the same sort of situation. So this weekend's going to be warm across much of the east and southeast, and that will continue to persist for the next 7 days. So the cool spot's going to be in the west as that trough develops, particularly influences the temperature patterns out there. Total precipitation through the weekend, not not a ton. It's not going to be a washout, but you'll see areas of rain over the next few days, general shower and thunderstorm activity, and you can see the higher footprints here. These are 0.5. The blue is 0.5 up to a couple of inches in the purple. And so that's what's generally expected over the next 5-6 days. The storm prediction, or the Weather Prediction Center rather, has our eastern sections above normal, much above in the mid-south, and then near normal out here in the desert southwest. And precipitation, most of the precipitation is going to be in the center part of the country as those systems kind of carve out that trough in the west and shoot toward the lakes like we've seen so much of this spring. Taking a quick peek here at temperatures tomorrow, actual temperatures for the nation, you've seen above and below normal. Temperature shakeout, 50s up in the north, 40s in the Rocky Mountains, 70s shooting all the way up. This is Thursday afternoon into the Cascades and really the Pacific Northwest, and then 80s dominating much of the South. Looking at Saturday, much of the same, same sort of pattern, cooler across the north and then in the Intermountain West, up and down and through the south and southern sections of the country, you're looking at temperatures generally in the 80s. And then we get on into Saturday. Your Saturday forecast features much of the same. I'm not going to belabor this because it's a very similar map. 80s across the south, 40s, 50s, and 60s across the north. And then Sunday, sort of the same. You're getting a little bit of a troughing signal in the west, so it'll be a little cooler at that time, but mostly 70s and 80s dominating the east, except for the northeast. So that is your temperature pattern as we get on into the weekend. And finally, folks, we're going to wrap up today's show with what? What are we going to wrap up with? Let's get all these temperatures down. We're going to wrap up with your daily IQ question, as we always do. So let's bring that back and we will see it. So remember the question, it was about fog. And so what is the most common form of fog, or which type of form of fog? I can't get the question right. I can't give you the answer if I can't get the question right. What type of fog forms most often during clear nights with little winds when the ground cools quickly? Advection fog, radiation fog, upslope fog, or steam fog? And the answer is radiation fog. We talked about advection fog before. You remember what that is? It's when warm air moves over a cool surface like a lake or an ocean or something. You get fog. So that is it. Now you know about fog. Now you know the weather, and you know about New Coke and Coke Classic as well. I hope it's been a fun day for you. And of course, as always, this is Cold Rain reminding you that if other stations run 24/7, we got you covered 48/14 right here. I hope you have a great day, folks, and take care. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.